only I can fix this.
Right.
If it wasn't for me, LA would be burning like it was with the fires. And of course it wouldn't be. If it wasn't for him, there would have been no fire. Let's talk about what is the hottest news. And
Okay.
that is LA, the presence of thousands of military activated by Donald Trump, federalizing the National Guard, and approximately 400 or 500 Marines are also on the ground, all in combat fatigues, all having been sent there without food, without housing, without bedding. They are sleeping on cement floors in their clothes. And so this was certainly not a well-planned episode. But did you have some questions about what's going
Yeah.
on?
Well, and also not even really trained for this, supposedly. This is not what Marines are trained to do, certainly. Um, I heard something, Lawrence O'Donnell did a whole segment last night about how this is such a distraction. There's so much that Donald Trump does want you to look away from. And, it was, first of all, he tripped up the steps of Air Force One yesterday or the day before. And, the Republicans played that on a loop when Biden did that. So that was one thing he didn't want you to see. But also Musk calling for his impeachment and
Republicans stopping support of what he calls a big, beautiful bill, and I
the
call a
bill.
disgrace.
Of course, the
Um,
bill is everything. I mean, they really want you to look away from the bill so they can get that through. So they
on
can.
Sisters-in-Law, we've talked about some of the things that are important for our listeners to know that are hidden in that, which includes gutting the ability of the federal courts to enforce any kind of injunction that they issue. That's a really serious thing.
Yeah.
There's also now cuts to Medicare, which is horrifying and which everybody said, oh, we'd never do that. But there are now Republicans saying, I can't get elected again if I go for this bill. And so he may not get his bill passed. But I still want to focus on, because as General Counsel of the Army, I know certain laws like Posse Comitatus, and I believe that Donald Trump is violating it. I also want to say that the judge assigned to handle the lawsuit that Gavin Newsom filed, the Attorney General of California, on behalf of Gavin Newsom, filed a lawsuit against Trump for violating the Constitution and the laws by calling out troops without having been asked to do so by the governor or the mayor or anyone else. And number one, Donald Trump is lying. I heard him today say, well, the chief of police of LA said that he couldn't handle the situation. I researched that. I cannot find one statement by the LA police chief that says that. And as far as I could tell, everything was under control until Donald Trump called out troops in camouflage with tanks and flashbangs and rubber bullets that have injured press people. If you were covering this story, Susan, you would be in danger. So I think that Donald Trump has made the situation what it is, and that it's not just to distract. It's to exert his power and to set a basis for doing this in other cities and to prove that he can call out the militia. It's a prelude to possibly invoking the Insurrection Act, martial law, to all of us losing our powers. Do you think the same thing?
I do. I think, and actually, I listened to the newest podcast today. I heard Scott Galloway speaking about this. He took it to another whole level, saying that this is how Nazi. He said, "I hate to make the Hitler reference." He said, "But this is," and he was, very adamant about that. That we're on the way to civil war and the end of the world and whatever. And Kara Swisher disagreed with him. If that makes anybody feel better.
Well,
She feels like
we
all
love
these,
both of them, so they
right,
are both excellent.
right. And Kara said at the end of the day, she believes all these people will be arrested. So that's kind of optimistic. I mean,
Well, when you say all these people, you're talking about the peaceful protesters who
no,
were
no, no,
singing
no,
and
no.
dancing, or
All
that
the people who did this, all of his minions who are executing this. And
yes, well, and there are many who say that they can't believe that the military has gone along with this. And I would agree with that because having served in the Pentagon, I know how seriously the military takes its oath to the Constitution, not to a particular person, but to the words and meaning of the Constitution. And there are also laws at stake here. Posse Comitatus, which is, I love saying Latin stuff. Um, and of course, posse, everybody knows what that means. But this is a law that says the military cannot be used for domestic law enforcement except in certain extraordinary circumstances, which do not exist here. Absolutely do not. Donald Trump can say it's an insurrection. He can say whatever he wants. There's no evidence of that, and no court is going to allow it. And I can't remember. Did I just mention that the lawsuit is now in front of Judge Charles Breyer in San Francisco, and that Judge Breyer was one of my Watergate colleagues.
Wow.
Someone who I completely trust his integrity, his intellect, and who I know will handle this fairly and without any predisposition. He will look at the facts and the law. And I think that the case that the Gavin administration is making is a very valid one, that we can't allow this to happen, that this is not grounds for calling out the military. And I do believe that the nationalized National Guard, the federalized National Guard, and the Marines will not carry out illegal orders, that they need to know. I worry because Donald Trump fired the JAG officers who might have stood up and said that this was not a legal order. But I think it's so clearly illegal. And I think, as you just said, people are going to worry that they will be arrested if they do it. And we learned in Nuremberg after World War II that you cannot say, well, I was just following orders. No, you don't follow orders when they're illegal. So let's hope that this is not a prelude. Chicago, which is where you and I both are, is clearly a city that would be targeted both in ICE raids and because we are a blue state and a blue city, that we might be the next to see guns pointed at us. And a friend sent me a picture of her niece who was at the protest, peaceful protest in the beginning, and she had a picture of a huge rifle. I can't tell exactly what kind of long gun it was, pointed right straight at her. And of course, my friend said, get out of there immediately, go home and do not come back. That's what they want, is to make people go away. And there was no protest that was violent until the military showed up.
You know, we're living in this post-truth world, and this is based on lies. And there are people that say that, this is all working the way Trump wants it to, because he's going to get his photos of, the few protesters who burnt a car or did something, more egregious. And he'll get those photos and use them for the midterms, and then make a whole thing saying this is what happened every day, when maybe it happened a couple of times, So it's scary.
As a lawyer, though, I want to say, yes, there was a car on fire, no question. I don't know what caused that fire.
Right.
There are several possibilities. A flash bang that was thrown by the National Guard could have caused it. There could be outside instigators participating in this, because there were a lot of people dressed in black hoods and masks. You couldn't see who they were. All the other protesters were wearing summer clothes and singing and dancing. Who were those people? I don't know. So did one of them do this? Was it a Proud Boy? I am not a conspiracy theorist. Please don't write to me saying you are crazy. I am not saying that's what happened. I'm saying I don't know what happened, and it's going to take us a while. And in the meantime, Donald Trump is making accusations that he has no proof for. I don't know what happened. And so we shouldn't assume that because a car was burning, that there was violence on the part of the protesters.
That's a really good point.
We also should point out that LA is a gigantic geographic area. This is confined to a teeny area. The protest has never been more than a few hundred people. Yes, the protesters were blocking a highway, and that probably is something the police could have and should have handled. It didn't require military camo people coming in and escalating it. That's what Donald Trump wanted, was the escalation. But I think for the small number of people, you don't need thousands of National Guard
And
and
that's
Marines.
it's such a big point too, because people who live in LA have told me this is an area that most people never even go to, who've been lifelong people that live in LA. It's just a small area, but Trump can turn it all and make it look like it's all over the city. The city's, he said last night at some point, he made some comment that the city's burning down, going to burn down. He wants
Well,
to
he said,
burn down.
if it wasn't for me, this is his favorite line, only I can fix this. If
Right.
it wasn't for me, LA would be burning like it was with the fires. And of course, it wouldn't be. If it wasn't for him, there would have been no fire. That's the fact that I want to make sure that
Yeah.
everyone listening knows, to not just that, but to question whatever he says and whatever assumptions you might make seeing the videos. It's the same thing with a video of MacIver, the congresswoman who was arrested for supposedly pushing, shoving, attacking an ICE agent. She was in a gigantic crowd being squeezed in. It would be normal to raise your arms to give yourself some distance. That doesn't mean I'm jabbing the person next to me. It means I'm protecting myself. So I just think we have to question what's in front of us,
Yeah.
and we have to be careful that we aren't falling for false narrative.
I highlighted one thing that Paul Krugman said. He wrote, he's a New York Times op-ed columnist, and he is a very straight, sober-minded. He doesn't exaggerate things. Listen to what he wrote. The events unfolding in Los Angeles as you read this, and I fear the events likely to unfold across much of America soon, quite possibly this weekend, suggests that the motivations of Trump and his cronies go deeper than mere sadism. They want to use false claims of chaos to justify a power grab that, if successful, would mark the end of the American experiment. Which for
You and
Paul
I could
Krugman,
not have said that any better. And Paul Krugman is a very excellent columnist. I read him regularly. That was brilliantly said. It
yeah,
may leave us nothing else to say today,
right. I mean,
except
you can't
please
tell.
pay attention.
Yes.